Just keep
Okay.
clicking the thing. Cannot click the thing
We-
too many times.
We are like, I'm sure we would, because then it would click immediately on end stream, and that would be really fast. So, anyway, we are here. I don't know if anybody else is yet, because time zones.
It's actually only us. What's up, people
Which
from
is fine.
Vancouver and New Zealand? How are you doing today? Well, I guess West Coast people don't have to be from Vancouver. Like,
Oh, no,
maybe
this is
someone's
true.
from, like Oregon. Hey, Ben,
Okay.
where are you? Yeah, you cheer for the Trailblazers, so I assume you live in Oregon. Get in here.
That's a hell of an assumption. But
I don't know why you would cheer for the Trailblazers if you're not from Portland. Like,
Oh, really?
It's a
I
miserable
don't even
sports
know
team.
which.
Okay, it's a miserable sports team.
In which sport?
Basketball.
Oh, okay.
And I know Ben cheers for them.
Which
so
Ben?
I just I don't know, the one on Jimmy's Discord is like married to Amanda.
He's Australian.
Yeah, but he lives in America. Oh, there's another Ben. I forgot.
Yeah.
I didn't mean this Ben who's actually here.
Hi, Ben.
Hello, Ben.
Yeah. No, because there are quite a few Bens in BookTube.
As far as I know, Books with Genghis Khan does not have the misfortune of cheering for the Trailblazers. So,
hey, look, it can't be worse than having to cheer for the Breakers, which are the Kiwi team. So,
I cheer for the Canucks, but they're actually good this year. It's shocking. No one saw it coming. Like, we haven't been good since 2014. And there was a random couple month stretch a couple years ago. And we're good randomly. Like, as far as I know, nothing significant changed. Like, we didn't get anyone new. They just sucked. And then this year they're like, what if we just won the games?
What if we did the things that wins games?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, I don't
How
follow
are
basketball.
You, chat?
I'm a football fan myself. Hey,
Maxwell. We have two
is
people in chat. So
the best ones, clearly.
Yes.
The very best
Everyone
ones.
else, if you're watching the recording for this, you're a fake fan. How dare you not get up at 4 a.m. and watch this?
Absolutely.
Or just not work at work. Or not pay attention to school. No, pay attention to school. If you're in class.
Oh my God, yes, you should totally be paying attention.
Yeah. Unless the class is boring, in which case you could have been watching this.
Unless it's free, you should be paying attention. And even if it's free, you should probably pay attention anyway. But yeah.
You're getting good advice from one of us. I will leave it up to the viewer to decide.
The one who hasn't been to college.
Yeah, I have a degree, and I'm saying only I didn't pay attention all the time.
And I dropped out at 16. So I'm telling you, if you're paying for your education, pay attention.
Holy crap, someone actually is up at 5 a.m.
It's Thorno up at 5 a.m. Oh my goodness. Hello, you fabulous person, you.
You're a real fan.
You are a real fan, my darling. Having said that, that is definitely a real fan, because that person also asked me midweek saying, I haven't seen you for ages. When are you doing sprints? And I was like, not for a while, but I have lots of chats lined up. So, but that was good. But it was very flattering, and it helped in a very bad week. So, and Ben is loving the Rainwire Chronicles.
Yes, he is. Go Ben.
Well, Ben's news that he was loving the Rainwire Chronicles had me cheering. I was like, yes!
He might have taken it too far. I mean,
exciting. And my cat just about died because he went from fast asleep to going full attack pose and falling off the sofa. He was not impressed.
I do have to. I mean, I'm always happy when people but he tagged me with this message, so I'm gonna bring it up. This is what happened on Alex's Discord. He posts his review of Dragon Keeper, and he writes, "Dragon Keeper greater than sign Fool's Errand thoughts," and tagged me. So I was like, interesting.
You had all the figures.
You had interesting.
To back it up.
Well, so you know what? If you truly believe, if you enjoyed it more, then it's not too far. But also, yes, it's too far. So I would convince Derry to read the Dandelion Dynasty.
He's tried really hard. Like, it's up there because Jake has recommended it.
I do know
I do trust Jake.
Derry's still going into epic fantasies with steep world building curves.
Yeah.
can be somewhat problematic. And I think Dandelion Dynasty definitely has a steep world building curve.
So it's very definitely there.
I would say Grace of Kings is actually like particularly steep, even for epic fantasy. So, like, I'm like only things that I'm like would be a steeper world building curve is like Malazan and like Book of the New Sun, maybe. Yeah. Other than that, though, like, I don't know. But I mean, I love the Dandelion Dynasty. It's one of my favorite series. Chatty is also a real fan. Wow, I said the 4 a.m. thing ironically, but they're actually
but we've got some people here.
They're coming in clutch.
It's wonderful.
But yeah, I mean, Dandelion Dynasty is genius. Maxwell hasn't even gotten to my favorite book, which is Speaking Bones, which is the last one.
That's awesome. And clearly it's like, no, push it. It's great. So that's high praise, guys.
The Dandelion Dynasty has my favorite character who's not an idiot. All my other favorite characters are they're dumb. Like, I love Fitz, kind of dumb. Course. I mean, the Fool's smart.
Sort of.
So in a way, but he's also kind of dumb. Like, really, all the Hob characters, like, they make they're you don't go like that person's a brainiac.
Oddly human.
Yeah, they're human, but none of them are like, none of the ones that are my favorite are quite like you'd think of them as like the mastermind archetype.
Oh, no.
The closest is like Chade, who I love, but also want to punch in the face repeatedly. Complicated. Dandelion, like, my favorite character in Dandelion Dynasty is like legitimately pulls off huge brain things. And so has the title as my favorite smart character.
Okay, that's impressive. Because it takes a bit to like a character that's really smart, because you kind of resent them to some degree, and you're like, oh,
it's also a very like morally complicated character. So it's like they're like they're also probably up there with Chade for like if you had to have like not quite the Chade level. Chade is a lot of books. Where like character I've changed my mind on how much I like them as a person the most times.
Oh really?
Chade is first all time. He might be in 3 digits. Like, for how many times
I still change my mind about him after all my reads, depending where I am in the series.
Well, yeah, Maxwell, even when you're 3/4 of the way through Veiled Throne. So yeah, I have a reaction on Discord where I'm like, every single chapter with this character is a 10 out of 10 chapter. Like, it's absurd. Only things there are no Dark Lords. No, there's not really any Dark Lords. They're horrible people.
We do have some mustache twirlies.
Yeah, like there's some very like pretty straightforwardly terrible people. But they're straightforwardly terrible in the way that like people are straightforwardly terrible. No one is like a representative of evil the way like Sauron would be.
No, even the most mustache twirly, there are reasons why they are the way they are, and they come across mustache twirly because it's first person POV. You know, the whole narrator. You know, the
first perspective.
There's something narrator.
I don't know. Whatever.
Not inconsistent.
Unreliable.
Something narrator. That's the one. An unreliable narrator. Yeah. So because there are things about Regal in particular in that first trilogy that if you look, there are reasons why he hates Fitz.
Yeah, I'd give Fitz a little credit there. I think one of the reasons it's not necessarily that he's unreliable, it's that Regal legitimately is shitty in basically every interaction with Fitz. But Regal hates Fitz, so of the interactions we see with Regal, we only see him interacting with someone who he hates. So, like, probably if there was a Regal's mom point of view, we'd be like, oh, what a lovely kid. Which isn't to say that Regal doesn't suck massively.
No, it's not. Just and does kind of, mar the unreliable part of it.
Also avoiding the fake fan allegations. We're talking about Regal and how we see him just from like Fitz's perspective, and how he is a horrible person. But for example, when you get to Live Ship, there's equally hateable people, but you also sometimes see them from people who don't hate their perspective, who
see them clearly. And you get other people backing up that opinion.
I mean, it'd be like points. This isn't a spoiler at all. No. It'd be like if Live Ship was like only from Althea's point of view, Kyle would come across similar to Regal. And I think similarly, if Farseer was like a multi-perspective, like, and obviously, like, I hate both,
Kyle more.
Kyle, I might hate Kyle more, but Kyle has the element where people are like, oh, he's a little bit more like, you see him from different perspectives, so he comes off as a bit more complex than Regal.
Everybody.
Yeah, but some people, like, he, I think, comes off as more complex than Regal does because you see him from various perspectives.
Well, yes, and he has different roles as well. I mean, Regal doesn't. He's only ever the prince. Like, he's never a husband or a father, or like, he doesn't have to put on different faces for different people. Whereas Kyle does. You know, you see him as being under a captain, and you see him being captain, and you see him as a husband and a son-in-law and a father, and all of those aspects give depth to a character. The fact that he's horrible in all of them is why I hate him.
Yeah, I reread Ship of Magic recently. And, you know, Ship of Magic is like my second favorite Realm of the Elderlings book. On a good day, it could be my favorite book of all time. There's kind of 4 right now that I have at 10 out of 10, where it's like 4 books, 3 of which are Realm of the Elderlings. And I usually see it slightly lower on people's list. Like, I think it's more common for like Mad Ship of Ship of Destiny more. And I kind of went into it like, okay, is this going to be like, this was the first Realm of the Elderlings book that was among my favorite books of all time. I was like, what, is it going to move just like into the middle of the pack of the all-time favorites? And I came to the conclusion that no, the rest of you are crazy. Ship of Magic is ridiculous. And everyone else is wrong and not me. Yeah.
Calm down. That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if calming down would help. It's that he can be calm. It's just he's coming at things from a completely narcissistic, self-centered, delusional perspective that doesn't match with reality.
And I made this point on the weekend in the discussion that I had with Matt and Evie. Kyle knows that who he is as a person is not appropriate, because when he had to hide it for so long before the other character died to give him the place that he gains, right up until then he'd put on that face of what was appropriate, so he knew it wasn't appropriate.
Am I about to defend Kyle? I hate this. This is terrible.
And that makes me so angry.
All right, I'm defending Kyle now. Who could have seen the... no, I like Rain Wilds. I just like all the other series quite a bit more than Rain Wilds. I've joked that,
which is not a bag on Rain Wilds.
Yeah. I've joked that, like, if Rain Wilds was like the first one in the series, I'd be like, this author had a lot of potential. Good. Like, wasn't 100% on execution. Like, it'd make a lot more sense, I think, if Rain Wilds was the debut. It'd be like, this author clearly has a ton of potential. Like, the characters are super distinct. Pacing got a little bit messy. Some of the plot lines were a little blah, but clearly has potential. Okay, ready for Kyle defense? No one saw this coming. I think
not when I stole yeeting him into the sun from you.
That's true. I'll yeet him into the sun after I defend him. I will analyze him fairly and then come to the conclusion that he deserves to be thrown into the sun.
So does that mean I get to throw him then into a black hole?
If he survives being thrown into, we can clone him. We can throw one into the sun and one into a black hole.
As a joke. Not even as a joke.
Only if he's only being cloned to be thrown into a black hole.
Well, then I could just do it forever.
Yeah, what if we like shoot a pod? I could do
it every day for the rest of my... Yeah, I could maybe be okay.
Yeah, what if we like shoot a pod that at a black hole that has no Kyle, and then the Kyle is cloned and appears in the pod, and he just gets announced to him like, this is a scientific experiment. You're being launched into a black hole. You have 48 seconds to live. Do you have any questions? And then, yeah.
I wonder if he'd ever learn to be nice.
Maybe. Okay, so Kyle defense time. I've said this like a few times. I think you can make the case that he was not deliberately hiding who he was because he knows it's wrong. Just that because of his limited role, and that he did actually legitimately respect at the time, like Althea's dad, Ephron Vestrit, as his superior, and he felt like it wasn't his place to question these things, that they didn't come up. I would compare it like, have you ever known someone who seems like you just like casually, like as an acquaintance, and you kind of talk to them and they seem normal, and then they say something like really wild and horrible, and you're like, geez. But it's just, they've never been in the position for you to see that side of themselves. So I think it's likely like Kyle was not thinking like, oh, I'm going to hide these things about myself. He was just like, oh, it's not my place to voice this because F1's the captain. It'll be my place to voice it when I'm the captain.
He let Kefria send Wintro to a monastery. His son, his wife, his choice to be part of that discussion. And he didn't even go, it really makes me uncomfortable because that's really not a bloke thing. No, he waits for Ephron to die and then yeets Wintro out of the monastery where he's perfectly content, doing exceptionally well. And then, sorry.
At this point, you know how
live ships, but I am very angry about that character.
Yeah, I mean, that's the premise of Ship of Magic, so I think that's fine. Hi, Chad. So I think, and this is how bad he is, because you can be like, well, in his defense, it's possible he was negligent and not paying attention to what's going on. And
that's a defense, Jake.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario for Kyle.
Okay, I think it's safe to say that I have made my point.
Oh yeah, I hate Kyle. Like I despise him. I mean, my Ship of Magic review, I had an entire minute and a half section where I just had notes of all the ways I could communicate that I hate Kyle. I think I had in there, he's as bad as puppies are good. A chin-wag, I think, is talking.
I actually put it in the description because I'm like, I don't know that many Americans particularly know the expression. It's an Englishism. And basically it's just an opportunity to get together and see where the conversation takes you. You're wagging your chin, basically. So it's a chat. It's just an informal kind of whatever comes up.
I am wagging that chin.
Absolutely. So having a good old chin wag. Because, it's BookTube and we'll probably talk about lots of different books. But we're also likely to branch off into the value of a paid-for education.
Which you should maybe pay attention if you're, and not watch this, if you're in class right now. But
well, it depends how boring it is, really.
I mean, you can read the notes later. You'll be fine.
I will have to take your word on that. Again, I dropped out, so I don't know what a university level education is.
Maybe. So, all right. Well, the problem is some professors are, I'm sure, brilliant at research, but suck at teaching. So their classes, they just read the PowerPoint. And I'm like, wait a second, I can just read that PowerPoint much, much faster. So that's how, and these professors, they're always very confused, when their attendance is really bad. And it's because you saying this out loud doesn't add anything to the information. I can just read it. And then
unless you're talking about these points to expand on them.
Yeah, so unless you're expanding on the ideas and then you're not adding anything, so I can just read it in 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. So
there you go. That's a pretty big time payoff.
By the way, I will say, a lot of students get in, and when I've never done this is other people, pure hypothetical, get the problem where...
I believe you.
Yeah, so everyone watching is a student, don't do this. Where they go to the first couple classes and the professor just leads the PowerPoint and they're like, okay, these are a waste of time. But then they don't actually read through the stuff on their own.
Oh, well, see, that's just
so you have to actually be disciplined. So I got myself to be like, all right, this time is still the class time. I will still work on this class from 9:30 to 11:20. If it's a 9:30 to 11:20 class every Wednesday, I'll just do it from home.
Yeah.
And do it better. Anyway.
Fair enough. So, small favors.
Maxwell, I think I just called out a large percentage of students, including maybe myself. I learned that from making mistakes. Okay.
Hey, this is how we learn. That's
one of my two biggest. This is all right, Maxwell. I don't know how much school I've left. You might be a better student. This is my big lesson for the second half of university, where I was a better student than the first half of university. For homework assignments, the difference between doing it badly and doing it well is much, much, much smaller than the difference between doing it badly and not doing it. So if you're right now trying to go from doing things badly to doing it well, but some things you don't do, your time is much better spent taking the things you don't do and just doing them poorly. Sounds like dumb advice, but it's actually pretty good advice.
But these things are important to know because
Yeah,
they're counterintuitive, but important.
And I will also say, like, for lots of classes going there was like highly beneficial. This is specifically like if you're competent at teaching, it's highly beneficial to go to the class because like you can engage with it more. It's just some professors who like clearly don't care about teaching, who are just like, whatever, I'm here to do research. My contract says I have to teach 2 classes every semester. I'll read this PowerPoint out loud. And it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. All right. Books. Dresden. Yes.
Dresden. Because I'm very open in saying that you got me over the hump into the good Dresdens. And now I love them.
Yeah.
And as you know, because I've read them 3 times now. So
you have. I think you might have read Battleground now more than I've read Battleground because I've only read Battleground twice.
Well, then yes, I have because I've read all of them 3 times.
I'm a hater. I actually, if I wasn't here, I would be reading this.
But you're on the new one, aren't you?
Which came out yesterday. Yeah. So I'm washed up now. I used back in the day. I would finish new Jim Butcher books on release. I read quite a bit.
Hey,
I read that much.
Oh,
I'm on page 453.
What time did you get it?
Like 11 a.m.
Oh, okay. You're rubbish, Jake. Come on.
Yeah, no, I let myself down. I'm washed up. I don't know what to tell you.
You're losing it, Jake. You're just losing it.
I know.
You know, I mean, I read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows on the day it released, and it came out at midday here, and I finished it about, I don't know, 1-2 o'clock in the morning. But I read it. There was no way I was going to sleep until I finished it.
I read Oathbringer in 28 hours.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I did cheat a little bit because there was part 1 was pre-release, so really I read 4/5 of Oathbringer in 28 hours. But yeah, I got it on I had an e-reader. I got it on it showed it was able to be purchased at 1 a.m. the night before.
Okay.
So then I stayed up till about 4 reading it. And then I got up at 9 and I was like, okay, I have class. And then I didn't go to class. And this was a bad skip. This one, I was like, I need to finish Oathbringer. I'd like to apologize. And then I read it all day and then finished it at 4 a.m. the next day.
Fair enough.
And then for Rhythm of War, I learned that I don't have self-control. So a week going into that, I was like, these are the classes that I'm probably not going to go to the day Rhythm of War comes out. And I got ahead on those classes.
Well done.
Yeah.
I booked time off work because obviously I left school, that's stupid. And I was working when I had developed all of this reading habit where books that were still coming out in series. So if I knew the date it was coming out, I would book that day off work.
Yeah, same. I do.
And then I don't feel guilt.
Yeah, like when 12 months comes out, I'll book it off work.
Hell yeah.
Stormlight 5, I might book 2 days off work.
And when I had children, I made sure that I said to my partner, look, on this day, you've got the kids all day. Because I am locking myself in my room and I'm reading this until it's finished. So imagine I'm dead for the day because I'm not on call.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Just count it as if you have a medical some kind of emergency.
Yeah, I'm just not available.
I'm having a planned emergency.
Yeah.
Because Assassin's Fate is
coming out. That's the only way
out.
otherwise.
Yeah, because Assassin's Fate is coming out. So
for most of it, yeah. For a lot of those books. Words. Facebook, obviously, with the memories thing. I quite often will have a reminder that Assassin's Fate is coming. Because I'm like, it's nearly here. And then as it's getting closer and closer, I'm like, it's nearly here. I can't believe this is nearly happening. And then the day it's released, I'm like, it's here. I'm turning everything off. And then
was Assassin's Fate one day or did that take a few days? Because it's a pretty long.
No, that was one day.
One day? I'm proud of you. Good work.
It was one day. And it was hard because I got it first on Kindle because I live in freaking New Zealand. Bookshops suck. And so I had it pre-ordered on Kindle. So I was literally checking my Kindle every 5 minutes. Like, is it here? Is it here?
Yeah.
Is it here? Is it downloaded?
That was me with Oathbringer, yeah.
So I had to wait and I had to wait and I had to wait and I had to wait. And it was driving me insane. And I was so happy when it finally arrived.
I'm kind of so Pacific Time, I always get books last, right?
Yeah.
And you'd think they'd be like, well, it's digital. We'll just release it at the same time every time. But no, if they know I live in Vancouver, they're like, no, you can't buy this book, even though the rest of the bloody world can.
Yeah.
And I'm upset.
Well, I mean, okay, it's slightly different genre. It's the paranormal romance, but there's an author called Nalini Singh, who I love a couple of her series. And her publisher is based in the States. So her releases happen in the States and the UK and here in the country she freaking well lives in. We get the books last.
You get most books earlier, though, probably, because you're like one of the first time ones.
Well, no, because it depends on where they've zoned, if they're selling by zones. And her books sell by zones. And the Pacific Oceania zone is freaking last. And that bothers me because I've bumped into that woman in a supermarket. I know she lives here. So, annoying. A little bit. I'm angry today. I'm sorry. That's unusual for me.
Some righteous rage.
It's unusual. I apologize. Usually much happier than this. But yeah, annoyed today. And I don't really know why. The sun's out. Why am I annoyed today? I slept okay.
You know, for Dresden, when I wrote the cycle of Dresden, that was me on my best day. That's all downhill from there. Yeah.
But it's perfect because it's exactly right.
Yeah, I'd locked into the code of the universe. And I was like, I don't know if you've ever seen the video. It's like cat ascending. Someone randomly put a flower on the cat's head and the cat's like, that was me. I was just like, I can see the fabric of time, the world, the universe. It all is revealed for a brief moment. And I use that transcendence to be like, this is the experience of Dresden fans.
But it's so true.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have been at all of those stages. And I obviously now am like every other Dresden fan that's caught up. I'm in that stage of really annoyed.
Welcome to stage 4 annoyance.
Nobody believes me.
It's like, yeah, I was where you were. Like, yes, I did this. I've seen this. Yeah.
I know it's hard.
It's right about like 95% of the time. Like, that's a good hit rate.
Well, yeah. It's just getting us over that first bump.
Yeah,
I've come. Just keep going. This first few, just keep going.
Like you don't go like false peak happens like every time.
Yeah. Well, I had mine at Deadbeat. I loved it so much.
Yeah, that's a pretty common place to hit false peak. It's usually, I mean, some people hit false peak in Stormfront. Like, it happens.
That's a pretty false peak.
Yeah, it's very false peak.
Sorry.
I'm Murphy
Very
Napier.
easy to please.
Murphy Napier hit false peak for Stormfront. Yeah, she's you know the Dresden vlogs. They're really good. She really likes Stormfront. Yeah. And false peak is what, and then a second false peak on Grave Peril. Which Grave Peril is usually the earliest normal place you hit false peak. And then Summer Night, Death Mask, and then Deadbeat is like the most common place to hit.
Well, it just has such an epic, set piece that you're like, oh my god, that deserves to be on film. I need to see it at an IMAX screen. And that was definitely my squee moment. But do I think Jimmy will turn around? No, he's become a dude bro. He's far too serious for Dresden now.
He might turn. We'll see.
He's reading all the highbrow stuff now. You know, he wants to talk about he wants to use all the really big words.
Are you suggesting Battleground isn't highbrow?
I'm suggesting that Battleground has a far more broad appeal to a wider audience who enjoy excitement and thrills and well-written characters. There's nothing pretentious about Dresden. I
think Dresden can be like the dude bros guilty pleasure. Like all the dude bros want to be pretentious, but they actually like they secretly go back home and reread Skin Game over and over again.
It should be. Absolutely should be. It's the thinking man's, I don't know, if we were talking movies, it would be the Rocky of sports movies. You know, secretly highbrow.
I'm sure there's a Rocky reference in Dresden somewhere.
Oh, there's bound to be.
Yeah.
Rocky's wonderful.
I
only recently, a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, finally watched Rocky because in my brain, it had one of those sort of, oh God, another Rocky movie, franchise kind of feelings to it. And then I saw, where did I see it? Somewhere interesting. And it said that Slide won an Academy Award for it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I should look at it. And I watched Rocky and I was like, oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Should be like Dresden's motto. Like,
well,
that's
kind of.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the few people who I think might have taken more head trauma than Rocky of all the protagonists in fiction.
Yes. Yes. Take that, Jack Ryan.
Yeah. Who is a harder head, Rocky or Harry Dresden?
Well, possibly.
Like Dresden has he can recover from he theoretically being all wizard might give him an advantage on long-term head trauma.
Well, yeah, because he's going to heal eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So, unironically for Dresden, like I think Dresden is actually like so. Daniel is saying
Daniel's here too.
I think that I truly believe that Dresden is like shockingly thematically rich.
Yeah,
I've read Dresden a lot of times now, like a truly unreasonable amount of times for some of the books. And
they're really good.
Like there's a lot in there.
There really is.
Hi, Daniel. I don't know if I've talked with Daniel before.
Daniel's fabulous.
Well, I mean, if Derry says you're fabulous, that's pretty trustworthy. So that's all I know about you, Daniel. I've seen one good take, and I've been told you're fabulous. So we're only running on good stuff so far. That's like
absolutely
got nothing negative.
Nothing negative at all to say. But yeah, I mean, I give myself a bit of grief about it. I love some rubbish. Trust me, there's some rubbish in my brain that I've read that I enjoyed. But I also read Hob, so my standard can be pretty high. Dresden is up there. I really enjoy it. Like I get properly enthralled.
Like it's not like just. I mean, some of the earlier books. I think if you like. I mean, for the people out there who are like, I love Full Moon. It's like, oh, this is some good harmless fun. But like, Late Dresden is like quality. Like it's unironically just like extremely high quality in almost every way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it. We've watched. Not only have we seen Jim Butcher as an author progress because he started them when he was so young, but his character was young, and he's aged his character as the books go. So, as Jim's matured, so has Harry, and Harry's actually a decent bloke that I would quite like to have as my friend. So I'm like, yeah, I like this guy, and the maturity level of both the author and the main character has really begun to show in all the things he's thinking about and dealing with and how he reacts to stuff now. And he thinks about boobs less, which is nice. Not a lot less, but like a little bit less.
Yeah, it's trended down a little bit. Like there's a negative trend line. There's a little jump up there for reasons. But there's a general trend down.
Yeah, it generally tapers off, and it's not.
But also, it's like the people I know in real life, like I judge based on their actions and what they say. Like, imagine how you would feel if people had access to like all your thoughts, including the intrusive ones. Like, we judge Dresden based on his intrusive thoughts. That's not how we judge people. We judge people based on how they act on those thoughts.
And his actual thoughts are, you can't say that.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Like he'll be like, that's not an okay thing to think. And I'll be like, yeah, like that's extremely real. You have the intrusive thought and you're like, no, stop an intrusive thought. Go away. True. Not a normal thing to think. And I feel like kind of everyone has that. And it's actually like, it's displayed, I think, very honestly in the Dresden Files. Are Full Moon and White Knight the least rewarding Dresden rereads? Well, Full Moon's just not very good. So it has that muddled. Again. Yeah, it's just pretty neat. It's pretty convoluted. It's like the only one where I'm like, this is convoluted. White Knight, I think, doesn't do particularly poorly for reread. I haven't thought about ones that like improve the least on reread. I can tell you which ones improve the most. Like Summer Night, Ghost Story, and then like if we count Peace Talks and Battleground as one book, all of the last three. Actually, Ghost Story, all of the last four. Summer Night and the last four. Because Skin Game for a specific reason. Cold Days. Maybe not. Does Cold Days specifically improve it? No, maybe not Cold. Okay, we'll go Ghost Story, Skin Game, Battleground, Summer Night. Those are the ones that improve the most on reread. Not necessarily to become the best on reread, just have the most.
No, but they just up. They glow up with what you know. Suddenly, it gives it that much more meat to get into. But as a series in general, other than those early few, it holds up really well to reread.
Oh yeah, extremely well. Yeah.
Even knowing what happens, you're still properly enthralled because there's enough happening that you're like, I never noticed that before. Oh,
yeah, I get
foreshadowing for the thing.
I get something new like almost every time.
It's very exciting.
So. Yeah, I just reread Aeronauts Windless. I did on audio. I almost never do audio, but at work now I can kind of at times listen to things in the background. And I was like, ooh, this is good use. And it's Ewan Morton, who's really good.
Nice.
He also, by the way, if we're gonna pivot, you ready for the skill of this pivot?
And he pivoted. Nah, sorry.
Yeah. Yes, Daniel. Yes, it did. As soon as I'm done this, I'm gonna go read a bunch of Olympian. I'm gonna try and finish it. All right, because you know what else Ewan Morton does? He does some Guy Gavriel K books.
Does he? Because I know Simon Vance does the ones I've got. The tapestry ones.
All right, let's see.
And I love Simon Vance.
Can I, big brain, remember this? Okay, Simon Vance does, I believe, Fionavar, Tigana, Not Our Bone, Not Our Rassol, Not Sarantine, but he does Under Heaven and River of Stars. I don't know who does Last Light of the Sun. And then I think he does the entire, like, Renaissance, 3 Renaissance books. Okay. I don't know. Who does Isabel? Who cares?
Well, I'm sure somebody does. It's going to be somebody's favorite.
Someone cares.
Hey, look, there's someone out there for everyone. I'm sure there are even people out there who can stand Anne Flosnick.
You know, I mean, there's only 5 people watching here, so and I'm one of them because I have had the YouTube thing open to check how many people are watching. So really, it's 4. Okay, of this there's
particular
6
group of people, possibly not.
Total. So the chances that Isabel is one of their has anyone else here actually read Isabel? Is it just me? Am I the authority?
It may just be you.
I guess someone might go back and watch this later. I guess I'm forgetting about
yes. And I do get quite a few people come back to watch the discussions.
So I will just say I've listened to samples of all the Guy Gavriel K books, and I know Simon Vance is more well known. I substantially prefer Ewan Morton to Simon
Really?
Vance. Yeah. I think Ewan Morton.
Because I rate him.
Yeah. The only audiobooks I've done, it's not many. I have done Changes by Jim Butcher. I've done Tigana by Guy Gavriel K, which is Simon Vance. I've now done The Aeronauts Windless by Jim Butcher, who's Ewan Morton. And I think I did a random Lightbringer book a long time ago. Whatever. But I've not done a lot of narrative.
Are those the only audios that you've done?
Yeah, I don't really do audio. I'm starting to do more for reread. I'm doing Lord of Chaos right now.
For rereads, they're great.
Yeah. I can't do them for first reads. I don't engage in the same way. But I'm starting to do it.
They just don't pace it the same way I do in my brain.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I've listened. There's like random. Oh wait, that's technically illegal to listen to audiobooks on YouTube. Whatever. I've listened to random clips of audiobooks of Cold Days as well, just on YouTube. I guess technically I've done Cold Days on audio. I think I technically listened to the entire thing.
I've done the whole lot on audio. Honestly, James Masters is Harry Dresden in my head.
Same thing for Changes. Like I've reread them enough times that I'm like, no, the rhythm of that sentence was wrong. That's not how it happened in my head.
Yeah, no, that's
that dialogue that you put the pause in the wrong spot, James.
That is why I cannot do live ships on audio. I just can't. I just can't. But James Masters to me is Harry Dresden. So I find now, even though I've read them, I've eyeballed them all now as well. I eyeball them in James Masters' voice. So I'm fine with that.
Because I have my own voice for Harry Dresden. I have my own voice for Dresden, and Masters does a good job, but it's not quite, doesn't quite match. And like, there are scenes of Dresden where like I know what the next sentence is going to be, and like I have it in my head as a certain like emphasis on a certain word, and then James says it wrong. I'm sorry, James, you're doing your best, but it's not the way that sentence was supposed to be said.
Okay, question then: does your head voice of Harry Dresden, is it more sarcastic? Or is it funnier? Or where do you think the disconnect is?
I don't think it's always different in the same way. It's just Harry, for certain scenes, says things certain ways.
Okay.
And then he doesn't say it that way when James Marsters does it.
Right.
Yeah. So
For me, it's always attitude.
Like when I did my audio for changes, I was like, okay, objectively, that was a fantastically done audio. But I would way rather read it. I would way rather read it physically. But whatever.
I remember the when I was using audio to get over the hump into Dresden, at your fabulous advice, there definitely came a point where I was like, I'm loving this. The narration is fantastic. The audio is marvelous. It's not fast enough. And I had to just eyeball it because I had to zoom through all of the rest of it because I read the last 12 in just under 2 weeks. I think it was 13 days. And I based that on when I first bought the 5th book, whichever book started my 12-book run, and when I know I finished the last one, because I bought all of them. And so I've got dates on when I bought them.
I remember, like, you commented about the deadbeat thing, and then, like, a day later, you were commenting on, like, Small Favor. And I was like, well, hold up. What's going on? I was like, did you miss books? Nope. Read them all.
Certainly didn't. I was on a roll at that point.
I don't know who does audio for Sword of Kaigen, but that's a really good book, and it deserves the success it's gotten. And I also have a really pretty hardcover of it.
Oh, you've got the pretty one.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Should I grab it for the people here?
Absolutely. We're here for beautiful books.
Sword of Kaigen.
Absolutely here for book beauty. So.
All right. Wholeness she had learned was not the absence of pain, but the ability to hold it.
Wow.
And then this is the cover. And then,
that's gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it really is. Mizaki's great. Mizaki, this is Mizaki, who, if you look at my last top 10 characters list, Mizaki was on it. She's wonderful. All right, 1 second. We ain't done.
But wait, there's more.
Also, I really like, I've seen a lot of colored end pages. The silver for Sword of Kaigen might be my favorite, like, colored end page. I might like it more than, like, gold for the ones that are gold. And then we got Boom. More Mizaki, because Mizaki's the best. And then this one isn't a spoiler, right? No, this is just a map. Boom.
Oh.
And then there's, like, custom chapter headings.
Yeah. Okay, I'm jealous.
Well, you probably should be.
Because Sword of Kaigen, Andrew Tell. Well, that's a pretty good name, let's face it, if you're a narrator. Of
and then, like, the chapters. Pages look like this.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is a gorgeous, gorgeous thing.
And it's signed. This was copy 1061. Nice. Yeah, it's one of my nicest books. It would maybe be in, of my, like, special editions, it would maybe be in the S tier. I don't know.
Well, yes, because it's freaking gorgeous.
It really is. Good job, Wraithmark. This episode of Chin-wag is sponsored by Wraithmark.
Well, if they did sponsor, I would possibly have something.
Yeah, if they emailed you and was like, hey, can we sponsor you? You'd be like, yes.
I'd be like, oh, hell yes.
I'm about to not be able to hear you for 10 seconds as I put this book back.
That's okay.
So, if you want to slander me to chat, now is the time.
Now's the time.
Because I'm not going to go back and watch this with me. So this is the time to slander me, and I'll never know unless chat rats you out.
My people in chat would never do that to me. Because they're all
that's true. They would do it. So wait, they would never rat out that you were slandering me?
Never in a million years. Of course, the fact that, of course, I would never be found to do so on something that could record me.
True.
Never.
True. Also, what do you think of the water bottle stickers? We got Fitz Fixes feet.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
And we got Weir Pack.
I love it. That's so good. I must actually go and get some of those. I keep telling myself I will, but I've only just gone and bought some Discworld stuff. You know, it's not like I haven't been a fan of that for a million years as well. But one of my 3 favorite Dresdens. Oh, that's really tough.
Change of Skin Game Battleground.
No. Skin Game, yes. I would have to think about that some more.
Yeah, the more times you read it, it trends towards Skin Game changes Battlegrounds. As you read the Dresden more times,
I like particular characters. So I'm like, well, obviously Skin Game. Yeah. Obviously. Death Masks.
As your quantity of rereads goes up, the chances of changes, Skin Game, and Battleground being your favorite increase. That's how it works. There's direct correlation. It doesn't reach 100.
I believe you.
It doesn't reach 100. It tapers out at like 80%.
Yeah. Oh, no, I believe you. I do. Because I'm already... So I've got to the point now where, a bit like with Realm of the Elderlings, I can't separate most of them. They're all just in the, okay, I just love the series, with some that aren't quite that good. So, unlike the Rain Wilds, the not great ones aren't. I don't know that they would have increased in my love, but
yeah, Jim doesn't believe in middle book syndrome. He just front loads the middle book syndrome. Same thing for Alra. But although I learned the other day something that makes a lot of sense, because Furies of Calderon is the first book in Codex Alera, and I think it's like it was published after Deadbeat, and I was it's significantly not as good as Deadbeat. But apparently he wrote it like as he was writing Grave Peril and just didn't get it published until Deadbeat. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
It does, really.
But like the first book for Cinder Spires is his best first book, but it's like he just like most people, like the worst books in the middle, he just like gets it at the start. Also, for Elderlings, Assassin's Fate, Ship of Magic, Fool's Errand.
Mine goes Fool's Errand, Fool's Fate, and then they're all the same. Pretty much from there. Those are my two favorites. Probably Assassin's Fate after that. Or Fool's Quest, maybe. That has the chapter 8 payoff.
Oh, Fool's Quest is really good.
You know,
it's my least favorite of the sub-series, but that's saying that's not like
that's not saying a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard. Again, a bit like with Dresden. It's like once you start actually thinking about it and you think about, oh, I really liked that moment. Which book was that in? Oh, that was in that book. Okay. That raises that book up. What about that moment? Oh, that was in that book. Oh, okay. Well, that lifts that. Suddenly they're all up here because all of them have got something that you love.
I'm a nerd with a spreadsheet and decimals. I don't have this problem.
Well, this is true. As for Discworld, Weird Sisters definitely is one of them. Going Postal. I love Going Postal. And what would be my third favorite? I'll try and keep it to Thief of Time would be my third favorite. Best use of ballistic chocolates. So
see, for me, picking my top 3 Discworld books is really easy. So
you've only read 3.
Correct. Yeah, so I'd say Small Gods, Guards, and Mort would be the top 3.
Oh well.
Pretty definitively. Okay. Like none of the others are even like none of
even
them
close.
Are even close. Yeah.
That's terrible, Jake. You should read more of Discworld.
Yeah, it's like same way I'm like I can pick a favorite Stephen King book really easily as well.
Have you only read one of those?
I have only read The Stand. Yeah.
Well, that's okay because The Stand is brilliant. So
we will not talk about it.
Oh, you didn't think it was brilliant?
No, I thought it was a book. Whatever.
I don't recommend Mort for this reason. I don't think Mort is a good starting place.
Yeah, it's of the 3 I've read, it's my least favorite for sure. Like I definitely like Guards more than Mort, and I definitely like Small Gods more than Guards. I love Small Gods. Small Gods was great.
The narration. Then Andy Serkis does the newer narration of Small Gods, and it's one of the only newer narrations that I really, really, really love more than the original, not as good quality ones, because his Vorbis is just brilliant, like just brilliant. I love it. Like it was exactly right.
But what are your 3 favorite Guy Gavriel Kay books, Derry?
Oh, that would be The Summer Tree and The Wandering Fire. And what's the other one called?
The Darkest Road.
And The Darkest Road. And I should know that because I've read them many times. But yes, Small Gods is brilliant. But I will. I will. Okay. And this is the thing. Now that I'm starting to work the brain muscles and I'm starting to be able to read new things that I haven't read before, it's a question of just pacing myself on taking them in, because they're exhausting, because I actually have to work at doing it. Like I have to study.
All right. Now I'm asking myself, which Guy Gavriel K historical book has the smallest world building curve? I don't know why I'm looking at my screen. I should look at the books. Okay.
Just look at the books. But yes. Discworld is
probably like maybe A Song for Our Bone, which is like France era. How do you feel about France?
I was born in England.
Oh, okay. Well, then you'll be happy when bad things happen. It works perfectly.
Pretty much.
I mean, there's Last Light of the Sun, which is like the classic Saxon England Vikings one that takes place in alternate England. The downside of Last Light of the Sun,
I mean, I will enjoy whichever GGK book I do pick up, and I will be reading them, obviously, because you love them and you are a good judge of books. Then I'm sure I will enjoy them.
Yeah, they're not super world building. Like they're a lot easier than
sort of real worldy.
Yeah, they're most of them are kind of like alternate.
Historic. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're very strongly based. Yeah, Tigana is probably like has the highest like world building. It's the most not Earth.
Real. Okay. Fair enough.
Our Bone's a very good choice, Ben. Ben, you continue to make good choices, and I approve.
He does. This is awesome. You only read Human, Tigana.
Hey, it's
Kyle. Just as well we had our Kyle rant earlier. But it's all right. Kyle knows that Kyle is not this Kyle.
That's true. This is the Kyle that actually, the expression, the like exception that breaks the rule.
Yeah,
that's Kyle's
is the Kyle
job.
We like.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the Kyle that's lovely to have around. Who is it? This is Connell. 3 Stephen Kings. Well, you've only read The Stand, so you don't get to answer this one.
Oh no, this came up with Kyle's here. Me not loving The Stand is Kyle's only reservation about me as a person. He's like, Jake's a great guy.
This is why I need to know your reasons, because I love The Stand. And
okay, we'll hear your 3 Stephen King books, and then I will say why The Stand. I gave it like 3 stars.
I love The Stand. I love it. And the next one I would say is probably Misery. In terms of, those are the ones I've read the most often. It remains my benchmark of the most epic reading I have ever done. I read it in one day.
That is actually like wildly impressive.
Epic.
Yeah.
I had no responsibilities. I had no job. I was 16. I was grounded. I had nothing to, like, I literally could do nothing all day. I had no other things to think about. I could do that. And I read it in a single day. I've never beaten it in terms of how I've managed time-wise to read, but I loved it. I've read it so many times since.
I don't think I'm beating the records of teenage me for speed reading. I've gotten, like, my brain get worse. Time happened, brain get worse.
Yeah, definitely.
Fluid intelligence, blah. Knowledge, wisdom up. Fluid intelligence, blah.
Fair enough. Well, what are your top 3 then, Kyle? So confused. Standardly spelled Kyle character. That's okay. There's a Kevin in the Empire trilogy that we're reading currently along with Alan, and that he doesn't like that either.
Kyle, we need to hear your top 3. Come on. People need to know.
Finals are It, Pet Sematary, and Dolores Claiborne. Nice.
I do need to. Kyle's right. If I ever go back to The Stand, I do need to read the abridged version, because
it's hard to get hold of.
Yeah, all the stuff that like happened, all the stuff that got removed. When I heard what got removed, I was like, oh, those are like all the parts I like less.
Nice. The Stand, 11/22/63, and Salem's Lot. See, I haven't read 11/22/63, but they are on my best friend's but that is on my best friend's shelf, so I will be able to read that at some point in the not too horribly distant future. And hi, Rebecca Nicole. Welcome to the Chin-wag. And so I do intend to read 11/22/63 because everybody tells me it's amazing. In fact, I don't actually think I know anyone who didn't enjoy 11/22/63.
It does actually sound like
Oh,
the most
challenge
interesting premise.
accepted, says
Yeah.
Jake. Oh dear.
So the stand, I think we're gonna do like the criticism sandwich thing, where it sounds like I'm less negative, where I say something positive and then I
Oh, and
air all
then
the
the real
grievances,
meat,
and then I end with another thing. Like, but in its defense, okay, so something positive. It does the most important thing well, which is that the characters do feel human and distinctive. Nick, especially, I love Nick. All the Nick chapters made me happy. I have my random series where I'm like, let's find something that every author does the best.
Yes.
And for Stephen King, I was like, I've only read one book, but he's the best at writing blind deaf character or deaf mute characters, which he won by default, but also would have won anyways. Yes. So,
see, I rate him for building communities.
Yeah. So yeah,
he builds communities like nobody else.
Yeah. Yes, Shad, I know you haven't continued. This has come up. But anyway, yeah, I thought like the characters were well done, like the entire cast. I was like, they're well done characters. So basically, the reason I didn't like it that much is if you split it into 3 books, I had like different problems with all 3 books. So if you split it into book 1, I just found the way like all the different POVs were introduced to be somewhat unengaging. Like this book has a lot of POVs. I think you can get away with this when you only have a couple. And for like a bunch of the POVs, like you meet a new POV. They're in a scene. Let's have them think about their backstory for 6 pages. Next character. They're in a scene. Let's have them think about their backstory for 6 pages. Next character. They're in a scene. Let's have them think for backstory. And I was like, can these people interact as I know they're all in separate places and it's hard, but it just, I was like, okay, I had to make myself read it. Okay. And then some of the stuff was really cool there, like how the virus spread around. And we get to middle book. With the problem with the middle book, which is actually probably my favorite of the 3, but the downside is not that much really happens in the middle one. It's a lot of walking, and
I'm okay with that.
But yeah, we're usually kind of okay with this. But still, like, also, this shouldn't. Good night, Ben. This shouldn't annoy me as much as it did, but it tilted me. All the chapters were like 3 pages, 5 pages, 5 pages. And then suddenly they're like 30-page chapters. And I was like, what are you doing? Please stop this. Like, if you're going to do 30-page chapters, fine. But at least don't randomly go up to 30-page chapters, like 600 pages
out of nowhere.
Bloody book.
Okay. Okay, that's valid.
And then the end was just a little anticlimactic. And now the defense of the end. Oh, actually, yeah. And then in general, I really struggled with King's writing style. Like, I didn't find it. I found it like kind of hopped over the place. Where like going through people's train of thought, I'd be like, okay, we're moving this way through and then we're over there. Like, it just didn't go naturally from thing to thing to me. Whether it was like description, like if someone like goes into a room and then like some people will write it where it's like, okay, they like naturally have this and then they do some kind of action and then they talk to this person and it's all in like an order that just works for my brain. Stephen King would just order things like that. I was just like, what's going on with this? I don't know. So yeah, King's prose really, really annoyed me.
Are we discovering live on this stream that you are neurodivergent?
Well, it works for most people.
I'm thinking most people are okay with this mind train that goes on.
Anyway, Stan, it really it made it just like tiring to read. Anyway, now in defense of the end, people call it a Deus Ex Machina because it literally kind of is, but it's not. A Deus Ex Machina is when it's solved by something that like doesn't have setup. But the entire premise was if they do this, then this will happen. And they did the thing, and then the thing happened. It's not Deus Ex Machina. No. I find the term Deus Ex Machina gets misused.
Overused. Yes.
It gets used when like there are sudden solutions, like things go from really bad they're screwed to not screwed. But it's like a lot of the time that's just good storytelling if it's set up well and makes sense. It happens for Doctor Who all the time. People are like, this was a Deus Ex Machina. And I'm like, no, it was literally set up
in 1968 in the episode. This is the most established foreshadowing ever.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I had the very lovely Pete, the Ponderings of Pete, who has just finished reading Hob, and he's just finished reading Fits in the Fall. And there's a group of us on Voxer, and he was leaving messages going, oh, it's getting really predictable. What's the bet? The next thing that happens is they're going to go and visit here. And I had to respond. I'm like, Pete, it got established all the way back in Farseer that if you're going to try and get to point B from where this character is, you have to go through the area you're talking about. This is not purely convenient. This is the route you've had to take for 15 books. You're saying, oh, all right, it's convenient though. Like, no, it's in the story for that reason.
Pete, come on.
But he had to give me that one. Some of it I had to go, okay, yes, okay. I don't have a problem with including that bit because I wanted to know.
I did.
So
Lions Valor song is brilliant, by the way. It's
Bex.
Hi, Bex.
Yay! I haven't seen you for ages.
I don't know who Bex is, so also haven't seen Bex for ages. Therefore.
That's okay. Bex was part of my reading team when I was doing the TBR Blitz earlier in the year.
You guys are lucky I didn't join that because I was in a mad slump for that entire thing happening. I would have not been a good teammate. I would have been
Daniel was also in my team. Daniel is fabulous because Daniel was my highest reader.
Good job, Daniel.
He did the most of the
reading.
reading.
I'm only hearing good things about Daniel here.
Yeah, man. He's awesome.
But yeah, we've got a comment here. He wants to read the Lions of Our Song. I highly recommend a YouTube review of the Lions of Our Song by Jake Bishop. Just kidding. But Lions, good choice.
Yep.
Yeah, we got Chatty saying Daniel won.
Yep.
And to be fair to King, like usually I'm pretty okay with authors doing whatever the hell they want, like in terms of, but the random change in chapter length annoyed me. I'm fine with like tense changes, style changes, whatever. Probably if I was like
with no chapters.
All right. I will now admit that if I was liking this hand more, I probably wouldn't care about the chapter changes. But because I wasn't enjoying it that much, and then I'd sit down to read it and I was expecting to read a 5-page chapter, and then it was a 50-page chapter.
Okay, yeah, that would be annoying. Yeah. But what did you think? Because Pratchett doesn't have chapters until very, very late in the piece.
Now, at least he's consistent, mostly.
Is this true?
So, yeah, if there's no chapters, then I'm like, cool, so I'll just stop anywhere.
Exactly. I didn't know that chapter lengths was a thing that bothered people until I found BookTube. I'm like, I couldn't even tell you how many chapters are in my favorite books.
I can't be one more chaptered if there's no chapters.
Yeah, I suppose, but still.
Like I read an extra 3 chapters of this because I wanted to know what would happen, and then I wanted to see the follow-up to that. If it was all one big thing, I would have just been like, whatever, and I would have read less.
Or more.
Usually less. Usually I read shorter chapter things.
Really?
It depends. So usually if I like a book, I'll read the shorter chapter faster because I'll get one more chaptered. But if I don't like a book, I'll get to the end of the chapter and I'll be like, okay, I'm done.
That's me.
And so if it's long, then I'll get to the end of the longer chapter and be like, okay, I'm done.
Actually, I suppose that's fair because if I wasn't enjoying a book, and I don't pay attention to chapters, if I wasn't enjoying a book, I would just reach the end of the next paragraph or, story bit that I thought was interesting and go, okay, that's it. Well,
I shouldn't say not enjoying, enjoying less. Like, I mean, there's actually some books where I haven't felt like, no, GGK has long chapters. I'm a hypocrite.
You are.
But at least he has consistently long chapters. At least he doesn't have like.
At least you know what you're in for.
At least he doesn't have 5-page chapters up until like we're at 60 chapters and you're on page 450 and you get to chapter 61 and chapter 61 ends on page 590. Like.
That's terrible.
Actually, because inconsistent.
Discworld doesn't have chapters until like books 35 or something. So
the real madman is Glenn
It bothers
Cook.
people apparently.
The real madman is Glenn Cook, who first The Black Company. I read the book, The Black Company, and I was on page 30, and I was like, oh, Glenn Cook doesn't do chapters, I guess. And then I got to the end of chapter 1, and I was like, oh, they're just really long chapters. Book 1 is like 8 chapters.
Okay.
Book 2, chapter 1 is 1 page. Chapter 2 is like a page and a half. Chapter 3 is a page. I was on page 4, and I was on chapter 4. And I was like, what's going on? This took 180 pages last time. And all the rest of the books are like a crap ton of chapters. I think the last book has like, it's a little bit longer than the first book. It's about 50% longer. But let me go see how many chapters it has. 1 second.
I found it because I read in isolation for a really long time, and I knew
147 chapters, Gary.
That is too many chapters. too many chapters. But I always read to how much time I had. So if I had an hour, I knew I could read roughly a mass market paperback page a minute. So I would just put my bookmark like 55 pages from where I started and know that when I got to my bookmark, I had to stop because my lunch break was over. So it was, and it was usually within a few minutes. But it
has 14.7 times more chapters, Derry. That's unreasonable.
That's too many. It is too many.
Book 1, 10 chapters. Book 1, and then the final book, 147 chapters.
Too many. It is just far too many. Far too many.
Find the middle ground, sir.
That's terrible. No, Terry Pratchett just does page breaks, and they may not be at the end of a page. You'll just get a big gap, and you're like, oh, okay, we're breaking into a different area or different character or wherever, and you don't notice.
I think the editions I've read don't even have page breaks. They just keep going forever until you get to the end.
I like Terry Pratchett. I'm never going to complain.
No, I'm not complaining. That's just like...
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I'm sure I've seen them.
Yeah, I'm sure some editions do. I just don't think mine
could be wrong. I have read them all so much that I haven't paid attention to what my eyes are doing for so long.
Probably you're right. I mean, it's a lot
just,
more likely either I'm wrong or we're both right. And that it just varies a little bit by edition. Or I'm just wrong and there were page breaks and I just missed them. Like those are both probably more likely.
They just
there you go.
They
See,
Chatty,
Chatty,
you go, page breaks. Nice. But how do I know when to stop? Well, I usually give myself a time and then go, I can read X number of pages in that time and put my bookmark where that is. And when I get to the bookmark, I make the call of, am I actually going to stop when I told myself I was going to stop, or am I loving it too much? Where now I'm going to go to a next chapter break or page break or break in what looks like the story flow. But mostly I just stop.
We were both right. Because Chatty,
us.
Chatty is like, it has page breaks, so presumably some editions have page breaks. The edition of Small Gods I have does not have page breaks. Text.
So yes, it just depends on how I'm feeling, to be fair. Hang on, have I got one?
The best answer to how do you know when to stop is that's the funny thing. You don't.
When it lands on your face.
Yeah. Or when you get to
reading
the
in
end of the
bed. Oh, okay. This is why I quite like my Kindle, because the stand is really heavy. But it's easy when to stop. The sun bother your eyes. Yes.
But I like the plot twist at the end of that comment.
Yes. Usually it's like when I decide to call in sick, back when I worked, it would be like, I can't now. I'm too close to the end and I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And rather than go to sleep now, I'm going to finish the book.
Yeah, it's like other people when you show up Monday and you're tired and you're like, oh, I barely slept. Other people are like, oh, did you have like a night out? And it's like, no. Except till 4 a.m. reading.
Well, or you could say, yeah, I was on a whole other world. It was very exciting.
Yeah. I was in a kind of
weird we were hallucinating.
That has spires and stuff. It might be Earth.
I was wildly hallucinating after looking at ink on the dead fabric of trees.
That's how I describe reading. I say I look at stained pieces of tree and I vividly hallucinate. Yeah. It's one of my hobbies.
And I was off my brain for many hours. It was great.
Then one of my other favorite hobbies is I wait for other people to look at stained trees and vividly hallucinate. And then when they comment their emotions, I also remember the emotions I felt when I read it.
Vividly, yeah.
And my emotions are like validated.
Oh, I'm very often emotionally, what's the word? Manipulated by those hallucinations. I have quite profound emotional reactions.
And then how about when someone's reading something you recommended, Evie, and they just update like, I'm done chapter 4. And it's the first update you've heard of it. And it's just like...
And?
Can we at least get a I'm done chapter 4 thumbs up emoji? Or thumbs down emoji? I just want to know.
I've done that in several Hob threads, actually. Someone will go, oh, I just read this chapter. And I'm like, and?
Yeah, and? But then...
Share your thoughts.
So Evie is reading A Brightness Long Ago right now. Yes. And just left us hanging for like hours. All right,
Oh,
Evie, if you're
no.
watching this later, we're gonna ready for this. All right, 1 second. We're gonna find this. Blah 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 blah. Okay. I can't find it. I can't find it. Whatever.
No work is more important, Donald. No work is more important than stating that need for information, because we need it. We have to have it.
Yeah.
And we do have exciting lives, Shadia. We live a million lives when the man who doesn't read has one.
Go, George Martin.
And here's the thing: it's no worse to not read than it is to be a reader and choose not to. I mean, if you're literate but choose not to read, you may as well be illiterate.
True.
Except
that you can read signs when you're driving.
Well, I suppose you're gaining the safety of your life. But
Yeah.
I mean, hey, what else are you really gaining?
For entertainment purposes. Or skipping class and still being caught out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're in trouble if you're not doing that. No, I'm going to stay on that piece of moral high ground. If you know how to read, you should read something, even if it's just the back of a cereal box. Read something.
Ooh, nice Wizard of Earthsea reference.
Yeah.
Have you read Earthsea?
A very, very long time ago.
Okay.
I read that back when I was at school. So literally in a previous century.
I was very busy being not alive. So
yeah, you were non-existent.
My schedule was full that day. It was 3 p.m. Yeah, not alive. Still can I make 4? Still not alive, unfortunately.
Still working on this whole gaining an entity.
Yeah.
You took a long time, Jake. I mean, come on.
I mean, on the scale of the universe, we took a very similar amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing pretty good on the scale of the universe.
If you took 13.7 blah 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 billion years, I also took 13.7 blah 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 blah
This is true.
billion years.
And how great is it that we happen to exist at the same time as Jim Butcher and Robin Hobb?
Yeah, that is pretty great.
And George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, although some people are going to get to exist after them.
Don't even.
I got to exist when Realm of the Elder. Well, actually, when I was born, Realm of the. By the time I got to the age where I would reasonably read Realm of the Elderlings, there we go. Actually, when did Assassin's? I could have read it before.
95, 96. Assassin's Apprentice. Assassin's Fate was 17, I think.
Yeah. So realistically, in a different turning of the wheel, I may have had to wait for Assassin's Fate because I was caught up. 2016. I was caught up on A Song of Ice and Fire before Assassin's Fate came out. So presumably, if I was old enough to read A Song of Ice and Fire, I could have read Realm of the Elderlings.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put them both under my belt in the couple of years before my stroke. Thank Christ. God. I mean, if
that's
all
the real time thing that worked out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, I had my stroke in the early. It was 2011, I think, 2010, 2011, one of those. And so most of Realm of the Elderlings was out. And I have always been able to do sequels and prequels and attached things because the world already exists. So I'm adding new characters. I can do that, but I can't create the world.
What if it's a historical setting a historical setting that you pure that you don't know very much about?
I really struggle. If it's something I'm vaguely familiar with, I can usually manage. But if it's something
familiar is vaguely familiar?
Vaguely familiar. I can do most things that are set in Britain. I've got a reasonably sound knowledge of the history. So I'm like, okay, I've got a pretty good idea what that would have looked like, what kind of things were the culture and that kind of carry on. Whereas I know very little about, say, the North Americas. I don't have a grasp on when things happened or the politics of any particular time. So it's really hard for me to put anything into context. And So it just depends if that particular moment in time is one that previously caught my attention and I looked into.
I was just curious, like, how much you'd have, like, if it was like the basics, where it's like, you know, you knew that ancient Rome was a thing, so something said on the Roman Empire, or if it has to be like, if you know, like, you know.
I think I could probably do later Rome, in terms of before Rome collapsed. I could probably do after they've established themselves
As like an empire.
and are beginning to decline. that window of time I could probably do.
Okay.
Yeah. And after that, then I'm good with a lot of Europe. I can usually deal with a lot of Europe, just purely because I always liked old stories and that's where I'm from. So those are the stories I got when I was a kid, and the stories people got for me. So,
and as someone who history for Canada, grade 8 is like ancient Rome, ancient Greece. And then grade 9 is usually like going like medieval Europe and Renaissance. Okay. And then grade 10 is North American history. I can tell you, it got much more boring when we was North American history.
Oh, no.
No offense to, I mean, having a boring history is good in some ways.
Well, yeah, because it means nothing terrible is happening, usually.
Well, some terrible things. But, you know, it's like the creation of the countries, like, yep. And then they were like, hey, this should be a country. And then they talked about it. Compared to like, and then Caesar fought, and no, not Caesar, I was getting the times wrong. And then the Roman Empire fought the Second Punic War, and Hannibal Barca climbed the Alps with elephants. And then defeated the Romans soundly 3 times, but could not take the cities. And it's like, oh, let's go. And then Canada,
and it's all like, very epic, and you're like, oh, it's all very exciting.
Canada was like, and these like aging white dudes, they were like, hey, we should be a country. And then people like signed a piece of paper, and then they were. This is sick.
Yeah. I crossed those mountains. It's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, New Zealand's got a bit, the history here is there's a little bit of both of that, to be fair. There were Chinese here over the centuries before it was colonized as such. So there were whaling outposts in New Zealand well before it was a colony. And then Europeans found it. And then it was claimed for the throne. And then they basically entered into an agreement with local tribes of the Māori, but not all of them. So then they had to take this treaty around and talk to all of the tribes. And then there were several copies of the treaty, and they didn't all get translated exactly the same. And different tribes signed different versions of the treaty, and it's all become very complicated because now the governments have all gone, that maybe wasn't very fair. What did we sign? What was it we said we agreed to? And of course, it's all different versions. So it depends on which was signed by who, and then what are they entitled to? And we can't give you that bit of land back because, there's a big giant thing on it. So there was some lovely stressful territory wars with the Māori when the Europeans first came, because other settlers had been here. So some of the Māori had guns. Fun times.
Well, when Guy Gavriel writes a New Zealand book,
there'll be stuff.
Yeah, and then you won't have an excuse. Then it'll be like, if he writes a New Zealand book, I'm like, you're reading this on release day with me, okay?
If he writes a New Zealand book, I shall be very impressed, but
and surprised, probably.
Very probably.
I'll be like, hey, did you hear like the new book? The new guy, it's gonna be about like New Zealand. You'll be like, is it April 1st?
Okay, I'm interested in that, definitely. Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I've heard of that. I'm sure I have.
I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about it.
I might actually know some of that story, to be fair. Because a lot of, because this is what I was saying, is that in having been brought up with a lot of European folklore and fairy tales and children's stories that are all versions of myth and legend, they're all the same stories, just told slightly different ways. So it's entirely possible I know like the core story, which is why I really enjoyed Naomi Novik's Spinning Silver. I really enjoyed that because it had a feel like it was an old-fashioned myth. And because it just felt like so many winter myths that I knew, that I was like, I'm totally at home with this book. This book is wonderful. And then Evie, of course, she had me reading Bear and the Nightingale, which was even better. And oh God, I loved it so much for the same reasons. It's, you know,
I haven't read any Naomi Novik.
She did the Temeraire series. I've read the first book of that, really good, and enjoyed it. I just haven't gone back to the second yet. And then Uprooted was her other standalone. And I'm glad I read that second, because if I'd read it first, I probably wouldn't have read any more Naomi Novik. Not because it was not great. It was just, okay. You know, first half of it, I was like, oh, this is going places. I really like it. And then the second half happened, and I was like, oh, okay. Fine. So I'm glad I read Spinning Silver, and I did really enjoy that. And then because I enjoyed that, I was prepared to give Temeraire a go, and I enjoyed that as well. Made me cry. Always a good sign.
Yeah, that's usually a good sign.
So, oh well, there you go. Give Spinning Silver a go, Rebecca, because it's it just feels like a very old-fashioned winter fairy tale with a bit of a twist to it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. But I will admit, of winter style fairy tale-y things, I preferred Bear and the Nightingale from Catherine Ardern. So, and Kyle has returned. But yes, then it was her debut novel, actually, Catherine Ardern. Where are we? There it is. Easily grabbed. That's it there. Bear and the Nightingale.
Oh, nice. Like, just nice looking book.
Oh, it's beautiful. Evie. You know, Evie, if she wants you to read something, she sends it to you. It's how she makes you read it. So she sent me that. And, well, she sent me all three, to be fair. I just haven't read them yet. But it's absolutely beautiful.
And she organized the Illustrated Farseer trilogy becoming a thing. I was involved in that, but I think Evie organized it.
Hey, look, Eve, I mean, the first one Jimmy sent me Assassin's Apprentice, because my original mass market paperback that I'd had since 2001 had fallen apart. It had fallen off the shelf and kind of exploded into a poof of pages. And I was emotional. I had a wee breakdown, basically, because it was my book.
Assassin's Apprentice, yeah.
I was a mess. And when Jimmy found out, I didn't know anything about it until the book arrived. And then I was emotional all over again. So when Evie sent the other two, and then with all of the books that everybody got together and helped with, I was like, oh my God. So I am so pleased that I thought to put my camera on for that unboxing, because if I'd been involved in that for anyone, I would want to know the reaction. And I was like, I'm so glad I've recorded that, because that was, I think you all got the reaction you were hoping for.
Yeah, that was the
which
goal.
was me, a blubbering mess. So,
yeah.
And I get, well, I do still sort of run my hands along them like, look at these babies, they're all mine.
They're really nice.
Because I love them.
Yeah, I've got them down. So yeah, I've got them there.
Yeah. And they're beautiful. They're so beautiful.
The illustrations are really good. Like, I would buy the folio Farseer editions, but the illustrations, I think, are better in this version, and they're way less expensive.
And the folio version, because Yolene has the folio version, it's got like it does not slip covered, and it's like the red cloth, rather than anything that feels fancy. I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, I
think I like my one better.
I like cloth bound books, but I just
do.
I just think the illustrations are nice.
It would have worked for me a little better, because, you know,
like, I've got the Book of the New Sun folios, and they're super nice. But
nice.
I kind of think the illustrations of the just illustrated editions are just nicer. I'd love to get my hand on the Subterranean Press ones.
I tell you what, I I want illustrated editions of Live Ship.
Yes. I'm very sad because we hit
I want them so much.
I was hoping we'd get them this year because it's the 25th
Yeah,
anniversary of Ship of Magic, but it's too late now. It's not going to happen, which makes me sad.
Yeah.
I would probably do immoral things to get.
I would. No probable about it.
Yeah.
I have zero shame.
Yeah.
I would do many things.
Yeah, to get either like folio or illustrated.
So long as I had a set, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, if price was not an option, so long as I got a set.
Like the same style illustrations for Live Ship. Be so nice. I
mean, I love the there's some beautiful art that John Howe did for the original covers, the original paperbacks.
Oh yeah.
And they're the ones I usually put in my thumbnails if I'm dealing with Live Ships because I just adore them so much. And of course, because it's John Howe who did so much for Lord of the Rings, it's got that same sort of mystical, I don't know, enchanted feel to it, these images. I mean, it's hard. I mean, of course, it's going to look magical. There are moving ships, but, you know, it's I just think they work brilliantly, and he manages to make it really evocative. You know, he gets the serpents in there and the dragons, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, so that's what I want.
I mean, John Howe's really good. Like,
God, yeah.
John Howe's one of the top tier
fantasy illustrators. That's you don't really get much better.
What's like the Mount Rushmore? I feel like he's on it. So I have three people who I can think of. I'm like John Howe, Michael Whelan, Mark Simonetti.
Oh my God, yes, I love Mark Simonetti. His work is amazing. And then you've got to go maybe old school and put maybe Josh Kirby on there.
I don't know. Josh Kirby.
That's Discworld covers. Or Paul Kidby. I like Paul Kidby's Discworld.
Oh yeah, that is very...
It's just so distinct.
Yeah. Yeah, and then meanwhile, Chris McGrath made a career upon being able to draw kind of tall, dark-haired men in overcoats.
And hats.
But you see, 1 second, where is this? Because this, Derry.
Yes.
This is Captain Grimm. He wears a hat.
And there's no hat on the cover.
Yes.
This is a problem.
Yes, this is Chris McGrath deliberately trolls Jim on this. Like, he deliberately just is like, oh, I'm doing a Jim Butcher character. Does he have a hat? Yes. No hat.
I'm not going to give him one on the cover.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I love that so much. Like, that genuinely brings me joy. Oh.
Olympian Affairs
Kyle
good,
wants to know.
Yeah.
It's good.
There was maybe like a 50-page section where I was kind of like, okay, we're getting through this, but then mostly it's been really good. It's not like Battleground good, but like it's good. It's not Peak Dresden good. It's like similarly good to Aeronauts Windless, I would say. Not like, which I've described as it's the best of his book ones in series, but it's not like Peak Dresden or Peak Allura. I don't, but I mean, that being said, things are getting wild. Like things are getting wild. So there's a couple 100 pages left, and like it could be it could be good.
Hey, the last couple
what's the
pages
term?
of
There's a Sandra Lanch. There's a Butcher NATO. No,
the Jim.
Whatever. I don't know. I'm so annoyed that they changed it. As much as I give Chris McGrath crap, like, why did they switch? Why did you do this to me?
I don't know. Well, it may not have been his choice.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was Jim who was like, get wrecked, Chris McGrath. I'm switching to whoever this person is.
If it is a person. How do we know it is a person? It might be AI generated. And if it is, I shall be very annoyed.
No, I don't think it's AI. I mean, a lot of the ones, they're not AI generated. They just like find stock images though, and the covers are assembled. But I think this is probably original art. That's end paper and interior illustrations are by Priscilla Spencer. Oh, Priscilla Spencer's still working on stuff. Who did the cover art?
It looks like a YA romance or something. It does. It's just very, I don't know, generic.
Whatever.
I'm not a fan.
It's actually the funny, like the actual hardcover itself. The binding is quite nice. It sits open. There's like interior stuff.
I mean, hey, let's face it. We've all said if we were going to ask for them to put attention into anything, the binding is usually the thing we want most.
So everything except the cover art, it's actually like a pretty nice hardcover for like a standard hardcover.
Well, is it a nice naked hardcover? Could you take the cover off?
It's just normal. Like it's normal. It's just like.
Because I would be tempted to be like, no, I refuse to have this cover.
I mean, it's just red.
I would say that's an improvement.
We're leaving the dust jacket on it. The spine looks fine.
That's all right then.
Well, while I'm reading it, this is going to be off. So.
Yeah. And as you say, so long as the spine looks all right, ultimately. Although it's not going to match all the others.
Oh, is that who did it? Was it? Is when he says Martina, is that just someone else? And
no, this was just a response to our
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore,
okay.
Yeah. Right in the first book is what drew me to it. Exactly.
Oh, you get to be more of a hipster than me. Was Aeronauts Windless the first Jim Butcher book you read, Daniel?
Oh, that would be an interesting answer. Well, you go. I had not read any Jim Butcher at the time.
Yeah, I mean, he could have bought it, but
true. Red could make a very nice pop on the bookshelf.
Yeah, true.
Yes,
we're place to put it because we're
getting a yes from Daniel.
Okay, so Go Team, because I didn't read Dresden first. I read Alara first. I read Codex Alera before I read Dresden. And Codex Alera at the time was like my favorite series when I was done reading it. Like it was one. And then I read later. I was like, all right, I'll pick up his other stuff, whatever. And I read Stormfront, and I was like, that was fun. I mean, it's not Alera, because it's not as good as Alera. And then, got a few more books in. I'm like, yeah, it's
getting pretty good.
Damn good. And then at some point, I was like, I like this
almost
as much as Alera. Like, it's really close. Like, I'm not sure which I like more. And then at some point, I was like, is this better than Alera? What's going on?
Yeah. Keep going, Daniel. Okay, because you don't know Bex and Daniel, there's a very good chance they don't know, and I will put Jake's channel, obviously, in the description because Jake's wonderful. Please describe our Cycle of Dresden to our
Cycle of Dresden. This was created by me. This was on the day I saw the fabric of the universe in time.
This is the day he became enlightened.
I wrote this randomly, originally in the comments of a Michael Nip YouTube video. That was the origin, and now I have it pinned on multiple Discords. The Circle of Dresden. Stage 1, skepticism. Like, these books are fun, but I just don't see it being among my favorite series. It's annoying that everyone keeps telling me how much better they get. I have doubts. It's possible this just isn't the series for me.
Yeah.
Stage 2, False Peak. Okay, fine. That was a quality book. I see why people love it. Definitely going to get caught up. Hopefully it can keep up this quality. Yeah. Side note, this stage will lead to peak smugness with people you interact with who are Dresden fans.
Yes.
Stage 3, loud screaming. Everyone go read Dresden. Trust me, it's so good.
This is true. I did that message to Jake when I hit that stage.
Yeah, the difference between me and Taravangian is I only had one smart day. So, and it was this. This is what I wrote. Yeah. And it was like a smart 5 minutes. Stage 4, annoyance. Why can I not articulate how much this series improves? Literally, no one believes me. It's so frustrating. Like, I was where you are. Trust me, we're on the same team. This happens to like 95% of people. It's like, it's got a shocking success rate. That's, because I saw the fabric of time and the universe.
Sometimes reading Dresden does feel like taking drugs.
No, I was referring to peak as in like mountains, Bex.
As in false peak of awesomeness.
Yeah, like I was thinking like you get to what you think, you crest a hill and you think you're at the top of the mountain. And then there's like...
And then it just keeps going.
You're the one who's...
And then you get to screaming. Yeah. You're like, oh my goodness, it's amazing! And And,
Yeah, no, I save money on drugs and alcohol, and I buy pretty hardcovers instead.
And hallucinate. So yeah.
Yeah, that's how I that's how I hallucinate.
Yes, but that is the cycle of Dresden, as described by Jake on his best day, and it is true in
so
almost
these
every
stages
case.
correlate with certain books, but there's some variance. Okay, so the most common variation is for the first two books are almost always skepticism.
Yeah.
False
They're
Peak
not brilliant.
reasonably starts anywhere between like book 3 to like book 7.
Yeah, could be at
But
any
no, it
point
can start
during
even a
those
little later
books.
than 7. It can start in book 8.
Yeah.
Those are like the normal false peaks. Loud screaming is almost always changes.
Yes.
That's like kind of the definite point where it's like, sorry, that's loud screaming is like changes. Now, some people hit changes early, loud screaming earlier than changes. That does happen, but usually
If you haven't hit it by changes, then
yeah, changes is loud screaming.
Yeah. Or swearing
and then,
on the internet if Sarah Reeds has anything to do with it.
And oh yeah, also Sarah's reading vlog for changes.
I love that so much.
Are we allowed to swear on this? Because I want to quote
go for
Sarah. Okay, so
please do. It was marvelous. If you haven't seen it,
to quote
marvelous.
Sarah Reeds, who summed things up very well.
Yes, because we asked her to vlog it.
Yes, it was brilliant. If you haven't seen it, just go read. It's worth reading changes just to be able to watch Sarah Reed's vlog. And then annoyance depends on how much you interact with other people.
Yes.
And
try to
when
make
you're
them read the things you
regularly
love.
trying to recommend it, and then people are reading it, it's like everyone thinks they're the exception. Everyone's like, well, not me. I'm just gonna. It's not gonna like Jim. It's not gonna get better than this.
Yeah, Jimmy's at that point.
Yeah, so everyone, and some people are the exception. Like about 1 in 20 people are right, and they are the exception. And it's possible that's Jimmy. That's like you can't know until you get there. But like, you're probably not the exception for most things.
The odds are pretty good. You're gonna
like,
love it.
Everyone thinks they're the exception for everything. Like,
yeah.
You know, for like, I used to work in a golf store, and I would, when I'd help people with clubs, I'd be like, yeah, we don't want to like waste swings because you're going to get swung out. Like you're going to get tired hitting balls rapid fire. And people are like, they're always like, no, I won't get tired hitting golf balls. That's a thing that other people, I'm like, I've helped like a lot of people with golf balls and they all got tired. Like, yeah. But everyone's like, no, I'm the exception. And it's like, yeah, no, you're not. I love the fairy courts. The fairy courts are my favorite of the antagonists. Some people like the vampire stuff more. I'm team fairy courts.
See, this is where my liking of really old European tales holds me in good stead, because the fairies in those tales are not nice fairies. So fairies are dangerous. They're scary. They will hurt you.
I got a nice edition.
Very nasty ways.
I was in a random bookstore on a tiny island off the coast of BC, and they had like a really nice edition of the Brothers Grimm. That was like,
Did it surprise you when you read them?
Well, I haven't read them yet. I just own the book. I read like the first like 2, but I mean, I get first from Dresden. I know they're based on. I'm like, I know, but I was surprised because I saw it and I was expecting it to be like $150, and then it was like $30, so I bought it.
Yeah, there's a lot of there. I mean, this is the thing, is that it was at a time when people wanted their fairy tales in books, so there is a surprising amount of old Grimm originals out there.
That edition is the Brothers Grimm.
And they're brilliant. I mean, fairies were scary. Fairies were dangerous, and there were reasons why people had habits ingrained in them from really early ages that you probably don't even know that you still do. Like people now, they knock on wood, right? Knock on wood. Yep, you've tempted fate. That's a fairy response. You know, throw salt over your shoulder if you spilled salt. That's a fairy response.
I knock on wood.
There are so many little things that still are part of our superstitious lives that have evolved from dealing with fairies in Europe.
So, Chadia,
I mean, want them angry with you.
In some ways, it stays urban in that, like, it's still set in Chicago, but it gets very epic. Like, it's the only urban fantasy series that's one of my favorite series. I just really like it because it's really good.
And when it says urban fantasy, okay, he lives in a city. He deals with a police department, and his best friend lives in a white picket white picket fenced house in the suburb. And he spends most of his time kind of in the real world.
But yeah, it gets very
very magic, very fast, and it's brilliant. It's
yeah. I describe it as epic urban
fantasy. I mean, it kind of just starts you here and goes, we're going everywhere.
All right, this might not be useful, but do you guys know the TV show Supernatural?
Oh my god, I love that TV show.
Chatty, I don't TV show Supernatural. Okay.
If you could see the back of my laptop, you would see many, many stickers.
All right. So Supernatural, there's supposed to be at one point, there's supposed to be this like massive fight that's gonna like destroy a bunch of stuff and be ridiculously epic. And the fights that actually end up happening on the screen of that scale ends up just being like two people punching each other. And it's just like the sound effects, so they hit each other extra hard. Dresden epicness is like it's what Supernatural promised, but it actually gets
shows you
scale. Yeah,
it just read it. Just read it. There are some fantastic characters in Dresden. There are some hilarious people. There are some really annoying people, and there are some pretty scary bad people.
There's just a lot of things he does really well. Like, so this is one that I think he's very, very good at making the endings of the books
make you want the next one.
Not necessarily, but even like they all are kind of standalone-ish, where they have their own like self-contained story.
Yes,
and like,
but they also lead into
aren't all the same. Like the endings are very distinctive, and they're all really good. Anyway,
and the characters evolve through them, which what I said earlier. You know, the first few books I think Jake won't disagree with me. They are the weakest.
Yeah,
but they were also the earliest. Jim was the youngest as a writer, and you can see him get better as a writer as the books go, and the characters age and mature and learn stuff and become traumatized or develop tics, but you see it, so none of it surprises you when you encounter it later. And I love that. I love that you get this big history.
Yeah, like the character work is legitimately like
it's like really good.
Yeah, and you start with the sarcastic wizard and it's kind of urban fantasy, and then suddenly you get a battle and it's and Jim Butcher's going all in that fury. She was a shadow, an outline, dark and terrible and undeniable, standing against the tide, unmoving. And you're like, oh shit, this is going.
Yeah, something really epic and Scott.
Yeah, and actually, like the first book's being like sometimes when you read a series, you don't like the first book as much, and then you go back and reread it, and you're like, this is actually better than I gave it credit for. Dresden, it actually just makes it more clear how much you improve. Like, I've had it. A lot of people.
It's not.
It also it gets better, like the boil the frog, so like it doesn't jump out, where you increase it like one degree at a time.
Do it slowly.
Sometimes people like don't notice it as much, and they're like they think that one of the first couple books is one of their favorite, and sometimes it actually is, but usually then it's like, okay, go read Grave Peril and then read Skin Game back to back, and don't read like Grave Peril and Summer Night, and because then like it just like the general everythingness slowly gets better. Like if sometimes I reread them in random order, so I'll reread I'll reread Death Mass, which Death Mass is really good, but then I'll read Small Favor directly after Death Mass, and I'm like, oh, this is like substantially better. And Death Mass is so it's the boiling frogs expression is that like if you put a frog in like a pot of boiling water, it'll obviously just like jump out. But if you put a frog in tepid water and then very slowly increase the degree, like by the way, this isn't actually a real thing. It's a lie. This science experiment that was done where this was a thing, the frog was lobotomized first. The frog will jump out of the boiling water even if you heat it up slowly. It's not going to let it burn itself to death. But for the expression, there's the expression that this is a thing.
It's just, I don't know. It's I have enjoyed discovering Dresden thanks to Jake, and so much so I've read it again since then twice more. And there are many. It's 17?
17 books, 2 short story collections, and then some microfictions and a novella and a couple random short stories that aren't in any other collections.
No, but they are on the website.
Yeah. Or one of them, you can actually get it for free legally.
As the
Let's
sample.
go. Yeah, if you go to the Kindle and then you go for the sample of the collection it's in, the first one is that story, and that's one of the better Dresden short stories. Dresden short stories are a little bit hit and miss. Some of them are like really
some
excellent.
of them are amazing.
Some of them are like whatever, and then some of them are like. And then there's some comics that I haven't read, and I don't think were actually written by Jim Butcher, and no one's ever told me good things about, so I'm just ignoring.
I haven't seen any of the comics, but I'm just really, really, really glad that I was able to. I think because it started in the real world in modern day, I was able to create that world, and he brings in all of the otherworldliness slowly enough that I could kind of build it as I went, rather than having to establish an entire world all in one go. And when he brings in other species, like when he brings in vampires and werewolves, and it's into our world, so I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. And when he brings in other worlds, it's sort of familiar, and then I already think of fairyland as being a parasitic universe anyway, so you know, it's easy. But yeah, it was great.
I mean, you're not wrong, Bex. Derry is arguably more trustworthy, but I have a good track record. Okay,
Jake has to give some really good recommendations.
Thank you.
When I get there, Kyle, because I do intend to get there, and I have read some GGK, but according to Jake, and I believe Jake, it's his least good trilogy that I have read, and I loved it.
I might like Isabel less.
Okay.
Isabel is like,
I've read.
Isabel is like Guy Gavriel Kay sat down and he was like, I'm going to try and write a book that Jake doesn't like, and he failed. I still kind of liked it, but I just liked it less than the others.
Well, I like to find out a tapestry because it feeds into that whole European myth legend thing. It's very Celtic. There's a lot of Welsh mythology in it. There's a lot of Irish mythology in it, and it's also an Arthurian retelling, and it's just this sort of mishmash of all the things I love, and it's told as a portal fantasy, which arguably is not ideal, because when do people get good at riding horses and fighting with battle axes? I don't know. The willful suspension of disbelief was there. I was prepared to believe it, and I enjoyed the story wholeheartedly, and I still enjoy it wholeheartedly now.
Kyle, I actually have a hardcover of Isabel as well, because my university bookstore sold it used for like $1. So I was like, why not? The hardcovers I have Isabel, All the Seas of the World, San Castellantium, and Lord of Emperors. And then I have everything except All the Seas of the World and Fionavar in the matching Penguin Canada paperbacks.
Very nice.
So, okay, we're bringing back a thing the Dresden Files does suspiciously well, because it's related to the comment here. There is at some point a point, this is spoiler free, a point where Dresden is tempted by some kind of like way of acquiring power that's clearly a bad idea, as tends to happen.
And he knows, and he's resisting very hard.
Yes. Yeah. The thing that makes it, how you can tell it's so well done, is every time I reread it, when the person who's like trying to tempt him with power is convincing him, I'm like, I'm convinced. Go
on, just do it.
Like, usually I feel like the character is convinced, and I'm like, this is obviously a bad idea. But here, I'm like, no, I'm convinced. Go for it. Yeah. And Harry is like, this is a bad idea. And I'm like, oh, Harry, you're smart.
This could really help, you know?
Yeah. I'm like, this is, I'm like,
this is a good deal.
Like, it's only a little bit of a Faustian bargain. You'll be okay.
Yeah. I have to admit, I do have that same feeling. I quite often will be like, oh, it doesn't sound like it. There's too much of a hook there. Like, but that's like, pretty good bait.
Yeah. And this one, like, I'm definitely like, I 100% would make the bad decision within like a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I was going to say, Kyle, I'm collecting them. Then you've got, I only need, and I'm reading the list going, so most of them.
Well, there's 15 Guy Gavriel Kay books.
So you're doing pretty well.
There's 15 of them. I joke, according to it seems like if you look at Stephen King fans and Guy Gavriel Kay fans, they write good books at about the same speed. Guy Gavriel Kay just breaks up his good books with nothing. Stephen King breaks up his good books with bad books.
times.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, so Daniel's only got the one. See, I mean, I love the Fine Art Tapestry so much that even though I no longer have the hard copies, I did have the hard copies, and I have them on Audible and on Kindle.
I have them paperback.
I love them enough to have had them in all formats. So, and there aren't very many series that I've done that with.
By the way, like probably one of my best videos is Where to Start Guy Gavin K, if anyone is curious.
Yes.
But Children of Earth and Sky is a vaguely okay place to start. I probably I have it as a not the best place to start. It's not the worst place to start. It is in the kind of like connected world. He has a connected world. The connections don't matter that much, but Children of Earth and Sky is chronologically last in that connected world. Publication order, it's third last. Whatever.
Yes, Farnell. Yes.
Yeah, there's going to be a big apocalyptic trilogy, and I have to tell you, if I got a time machine tomorrow, I'd go 10 years in the future and be like, give me the Dresden books. I need the big apocalyptic trilogy. Yeah. Like, I want it in my life. I need it.
Oh, yeah, you're going to know the Dresden fans in your life when they get published. They will vanish briefly from your sphere. You're like, where have you been?
Big apocalyptic trilogy. Who doesn't want a big apocalyptic trilogy at the end?
Well, it's not so much even that a big apocalyptic trilogy is that it's a big apocalyptic trilogy with Harry Dresden in the middle.
Yeah.
And all of the other factors that we discover.
Awesome. There's so many ways things can go horribly.
There's that power that we didn't realize. And
I don't even know what style of apocalypse it's going to be. There's like 8 ways things could go horribly. Are they just all going to go wrong? Everything's going to be on fire.
Everything?
Yeah. So many things are going to be on fire.
So many things are going to be on fire.
I can't wait to hear about how Jim has tricked me. Yeah, no, things being on fire is not a spoiler for the Dragon
No, that
Ball.
is not a spoiler, but it is my favorite opening line of a book ever.
The building was
on fire and it wasn't my fault.
No. Whatever you say.
I just love it. Because that was what I thought. My brain was like, yeah, sure, Harry.
Yeah, like whatever
you're
you say.
You're going to tell me now how it was your fault.
Yeah. He's like, there were monkey demons throwing flaming poop.
Yeah. While he's carrying anyway.
For those who haven't read Dresden, I'm not making that up. That is actually
really
what was going on.
Yeah.
He was trying to rescue the puppies from the monkey demons throwing flaming poop. That is how one of them opens.
And it's brilliant.
Ooh, good old Pharaohbacks.
Oh my God, he's going to be in that final trilogy.
He can't do that much.
It's going to be massive.
He can't do that much, though, unfortunately.
Not in this plane, but...
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. Sorry
for the people minor character.
Dresden.
Yeah.
But it's very exciting.
But hey, that's your fault for having not read it. So.
We are very excited because the potential for just mind-boggling awesomeness is very much front and center because it's going to be mind-boggling and it's going to be awesome. No pressure, Jim. But yeah.
Oh, this is what are you reading, Gary? We never asked.
Nothing.
Oh.
I am in the slump of slumps.
Okay.
I am still reading Blood Rights that I started in September. So, but I am nearly finished. But it's the only thing I'm currently listening to, reading, having on my phone, doing at all. That's a lie. Sorry, today I downloaded a Mercedes Lackey and I'm actually making good headway in that. So, and that's a sort of YA. It's very sweet.
Yeah, I mean, we're always talking about like Guy Gavin K and like the books that I like that you haven't read, but I'm pretty sure you have a lot more books on your Goodreads than I have on mine. What are the
very probably?
Yeah, way more. 1,256 ratings.
Yeah.
Look at
that.
So
those are just the books I remember having read.
Yeah. So what are the ones that I should read that I haven't?
Oh, there are too many. For me to just think that off the top of my head.
Can you come up with 5?
Hang on. Short check. Because here's the thing. When I left my ex, I had to abandon pretty much everything I had, which included my library. And I had 700-800 books. So one of the first things that I did was make sure I had all of the books that I loved on my Kindle. So it took me a long time, but I managed to get most of my books back on my Kindle. And I lived in a tiny, tiny apartment, so I didn't have any room for physical books. Now I have a little of room. I'm rebuying the things I particularly love. So checking my bookshelves is a good sign of how much I loved it. And you haven't read the Empire series that I've been reading with Alan, have you? That's Jenny
True.
Wirtz and Raymond Feist.
I have not.
That's very good. And I've got a lot of old science fiction that I don't know that you would necessarily enjoy, because it is quite old-fashioned in terms of the good guys are the good guys and the bad guys are the bad guys. But I very much enjoy the Anne McCaffrey's Dragons of Pern series, and her Brain Ships series, and her Tower and Hive series. Again, they're very traditional and old-fashioned. We're talking 70s and 80s, crawling into the 90s. And then her son Todd took over the Dragon Riders of Pern series, and I didn't like that quite so much. I like Melanie Rawn. Again, that was 80s, 90s. That's a very good series for you, Chadia, and for you, Bex. That starts with the Dragon Prince. That's a very good series. You might actually like that, Jake, now I think about it.
What series?
Dragon Rider.
The
Dragon Prince by Melanie Rawn. It's not easy to get hold of. Well, my headphones go that far.
I found it. Yeah, it's funny scrolling through your Goodreads on like 5 stars, because I got to Assassin's Apprentice and all the reread dates, so I just had to keep scrolling.
Yes. So I very much enjoyed this. It's surprisingly political, and I liked it. And the magic system is very unique in this trilogy. It's about light, and basically light rays can be woven by the people who can use it, and they can communicate across light, which sounds great. And it's a great author's tool, because all she has to do is have it be winter, and then no one can talk to each other. So, you know, it makes it reasonably easy for her to steer the plot when she needs people to not know stuff. It just is a cloudy day and there's no sun. So clearly
she does. Does she do the? Do you know the Jim Butcher trick when he doesn't know what to do with the plot?
No.
He has
I
said
probably do when you point it out. I'll go.
People have asked him, "What do you do when you're like you get stuck?" And he's like, "Oh, that's easy. I have someone break through the door with a gun." So if you ever get to a point in the Dresden Files and someone breaks through the door,
I can think that happening at least 3 times just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That means Jim was like, I'm not sure how this is going to continue.
So I need to just stop it happening and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
It works really well.
That's great. I'm going to notice it even more now. That's brilliant. I love it.
And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, ooh, Jim knew where this was going.
He had a plan for this scene.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I will look for that now. But yes, I really enjoy that trilogy. There is a second trilogy that follows on from this, which is just about as good. I mean, it's not perfect because it doesn't end how I want it to, and that's always annoying. But it's believable. What else have I? I've got a lot of the oldest things I have best luck with in bookshops. So a lot of David Eddings, which you only have to read the first 5 and you've read all of them. And yeah, Anne McCaffrey and Mercedes Lackey. I adore Mercedes Lackey. She does very straightforward stories, very good. People are good and bad people are bad. And all of our heroes are lovely and all of our villains are moustache twirly, which when you're in a reading slump can be just the balm you need for your brain. I'm currently reading the first book because I've gone right back to the beginning with the Arrows of the Queen, the Heralds of Valdemar series trilogy. And she has a world with a very extended timeline, and she will write a trilogy somewhere along that timeline.
Huh.
So it kind of doesn't matter where you start because she will reference things in a series that has been written and she will reference something in a series that she hasn't written yet. So it doesn't matter because...
I mean, I guess actually Gigi Kato, he's got, I call it the Renaissance trilogy. He's got 3 books that are set a lot closer to, like, most of his books are like hundreds of years apart, but 3 of them are within about 25 years in a similar-ish setting.
Yeah.
And like Children of Earth and Sky came first, and then Brightness Long Ago, and then All the Seas of the World. Rereading Brightness Long Ago, I'm like, oh, that's a reference to someone in All the Seas of the World, which he hadn't written yet. But I don't think this is that it was all planned. I think he just casually mentioned this, and then he was like, ooh.
I could tell that story.
I think while he was writing it, he's like, ooh, this side character has all this stuff going on. And then he was like, I don't have time for this. I'll do it later.
I'll save this for later.
Yeah.
Quite possibly she's done that with the Valdemar series, where she's gone, that's actually an interesting story on its own, that now that I've given myself that tidbit, I can build from and create it. Because the first trilogy she wrote was this one that I've just started, which is in the current moment of the timeline. The next trilogy she wrote was set about 500 years earlier than that. And then the next one comes back and follows the characters from the first trilogy, but quite a lot later. And they're the secondary characters to someone who is a child in the first trilogy. And that branches off into another area of the world. And then we get the history of that area of the world in one that's like a couple of thousands of years ago. And then there's a standalone. And yeah, but they all have bits that reference things that happen in others. But it's not so serious that you have to read them in order, because they're just sweet stories. They have the heralds of this world. They're called heralds because they share the news around all over the place, and the monarch has to be a herald. That's part of the founding law of this country. And the herald is chosen by a companion, and a companion looks like a horse. It is not a horse, although they don't tell their heralds that. People from other countries can see they're not horses. There's some kind of godly avatar shaped as a horse, but within the country, nobody acknowledges that. They're just white horses. And they go around doing good, basically.
Well, that's nice of them.
It's just nice. It's a nice series.
That sounds like a good pitch for Evie. It's like there's these horses. They're actually deities. Yeah. They go around doing good
I was thinking about it this afternoon. I was on the train. I was coming back from buying some fabric because I'm making some bags for Christmas. And I was reading it on the train, and I thought, I must tell Evie about this book because she would love it when she just wants something easy. And they're great for easy books. And for old books, they're very inclusive. The main character in the second trilogy that she wrote, which is The Last Herald Mage, the principal character is gay, and he doesn't know he's gay because nobody around him has even let him know that being gay is a thing that exists. So they just pick on him and bully him, and he has no idea why. And then he moves, and now he's like, oh, that person, I think I like that person. And that's what I do. So I do. I even have a Christmas bag that I have made.
Nice.
Because I've made, how many? About, I don't know, a couple of dozen for sale at a Christmas market before Christmas, because I could do some money. But so yeah, I needed more fabric.
Given the choice between some money and not some money, I always choose some money.
Absolutely. And I'm in a reading slump, so I needed something to do with myself. So I started sewing and made some Christmas bags, because I figured gift bags that are cotton and can be washed and recycled and reused and all the things is a kind of cool thing to buy at a market.
True.
So, and enough of them are Christmas fabric that they should do well at the market before Christmas.
That does make sense. That seems like the time to sell them.
Yeah.
I don't think they do well in July.
They might. You'd be surprised, because in July it's winter here.
Oh, yeah.
So the midwinter things kick off, and there are a remarkable number of Christmas-themed midwinter things. So I mean, they're not all Christmas themed. I've got a couple that are just like baby colors.
I guess, does that mean it's like coming up to the summer solstice for you guys?
It's warming up, definitely.
Like you guys are like, the days are getting longer. I've just like Tuesday.
Like you literally just had daylight savings.
Tuesday was the first
about Wednesday. 3 weeks ago.
Wednesday, like yesterday was the first day where I got done work and it was dark out. I was like, that's miserable.
Whereas I'm getting to the point now where I don't notice that it's 9 o'clock at night because it's just getting dark. So yeah, and it's warmer now. Like I wore a t-shirt all day, except when I was in the city when it was really windy, because Wellington is really windy and cold. So, and yes, these particular bags are book sized. Is that a coincidence? Yes. Do we believe that it's a coincidence?
No,
well,
I don't believe you.
It's possible it was a subconscious thing that was the size that felt like the right size. And it wasn't until you just said their book size that I'm looking at them going, actually, that would be exactly the right size for
hardcover sized or mass market paperback sized?
Well, okay. Mass market paperback, almost to the centimeter.
Tall mass market paperback or normal mass? Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh, Bex. Oh, I have to see now. If it fits perfectly. It is good.
Well, that's you subconsciously made it the correct size.
I really did. Oh my god.
Didn't even have to measure it.
I didn't. Apparently, I just know what size a paperback needs. Oh dear. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why that tickled me quite so much, but it did.
Your subconscious is working as you're sewing.
It clearly is. See, this is me going, I should be reading. I should be reading. Books were on the brain.
Yeah,
even if I
got Olympian Affair that I'm going to finish tonight.
This is true. How long do you reckon? A couple 100 pages.
Oh yeah, I'm on page 453, and this book is 609 pages.
Ooh. I should probably let you go soon then, so that you've got time to do that, because it is still midweek and you have stuff to do tomorrow.
It's 9:36 right now, so I think I might be bailing on you.
But how good is that? We just had a 2-hour conversation. Yeah. It's not the middle of the night for you, and it wasn't the crack of dawn for me.
It's great. Go New Zealand time zone. Get wrecked, East Coast people. This is what you get for inconveniencing me every previous time.
Absolutely.
Why are all the booktubers on the East Coast? It's
I don't
just
know.
Like me and Bookborn are the two West Coast ones.
Oh, well, there you go. I need to get hold of Bookborn and say, hey, we should do one too.
I guess I say that. So I'd like to apologize to Theo, who I've literally lives in the same city as me.
Actually, yes, you have.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I've met in person. So presumably is in the same time zone as me.
One would assume, yes.
Yeah.
Although I haven't seen Theo much lately. Has he been
I think he's just been busy. He said in the Discord somewhere that he's going to be inactive for a bit, but he's fine.
I'm kind of okay with that. It wasn't fair that his very first video was perfect in terms of lighting and sound.
Yeah, it is a bit unfair.
You know, that was just rude. I mean, how dare he?
Yeah.
Anyway. On that note of Theo's absolute brilliant videos, if you haven't subscribed to Jake, do subscribe to Jake. He has some wonderful book recommendations. Do take him seriously. He knows what he's talking about.
Sometimes.
And if I have, well, mostly. And if I haven't already, I shall add the link in my description. And I will be back with you at some point shortly. Jake, is there anywhere else that you are active?
I have a Goodreads, but mostly, I mean, it's if you look at the scroll down on the video, all the stuff that's relevant. I'm not really active on that many other things. If you want to see my opinion on books, I update my Goodreads regularly. And it's linked in all my videos. Click on any of them. Yeah. I manually type it out in the description of every video. No, it's automatically there. Every time I manually type it out, I don't even copy paste the link. I'm like, this is my Goodreads, and I've just memorized it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's some dedication, Jake. I admire that. That's well done.
It's my favorite expression: work harder, not smarter.
I think that you might have that the wrong way around.
Well, I'm working harder and not smarter, trying to figure out what the expression is, so I can't figure out what the right way is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jake. I actually had as much fun as I thought I would. So,
well, that's good.
That's
good
awesome.
chin-wag.
Yeah, man. Enjoy
Thanks
your
for having
evening.
me on. Now before this, I was like, oh, Derry must just not like me, but now I know that's not the
No,
case.
not at
So
all. Like seriously, if I'd thought about it, actually, I could have tabbed all of the pages in my. I keep because my memory isn't good since my stroke. I write down random things in my notebook all day, every day. Things from computer games and sewing bits and things people. I had to put some information from my notebook into my actual calendar. And just doing that, I had 3 separate notes in there going, get hold of Jake, get hold of Jake, arrange something with Jake. And I was like,
oh yeah, I probably could do that.
I should probably do that. And as I thought that the other week, I thought, right, just message him now while you're thinking about it. Do it now.
I'm still being shunned by Evie because I don't think I've been on Evie's channel for Realm of the Elderlings, even though I'm the one who got her to read Realm of the Elderlings in a TBR.
Then I owe you a massive thank you as well.
Yeah, she was gonna read it anyways, but she was like, "I'll read Assassin's Apprentice if you read Dune Messiah," and I was like,
"Well, I think cool. Evie won on that one."
She did, yeah. That's the second time I've TBR swapped Realm of the Elderlings twice. The other was with one Chief Hand Grenade, who's on some of the Discords. Lovely chap. I think he's just his name now. And I read The Golden Compass, and he read Assassin's Apprentice. And like Fool's Fate's his favorite book.
Yes. Well done, Jake.
And then I've had some where I did actually. There was one where I came out on top recently where I liked it more, which was with Oliver, who's also just a person on Discord. He read. I told him he could read any Guy Gavriel Case story, and he was like, "I'll read Fiona of Arc because it's first in publication."
Oh, okay.
And I was just like, "Whatever." And I read Dreams of the Dying, which was quite good. And he didn't love Fiona of Arc that much, and I was like,
it helps if you've got some Celtic European knowledge on
I was like, whatever. I was like, how about you don't start with Fiona of Arc? He's like, yeah, but I want to go in publication order. I'm like, when you read George R. R. Martin, are you going to read all his sci-fi before Game of Thrones? This is
well, Jimmy would suggest that you should.
No, Jimmy would say read a Game of Thrones.
Actually, no, you're right. He would.
Yeah.
Although Sand Kings apparently is the most amazing 40 pages he's ever read of anything ever.
Well, he'll tell you to also go read the other stuff, but read a Game of Thrones. He won't be like, well, you should read all the sci-fi before you read a Game of Thrones.
This is very true. This is very true. Anyway.
You gotta go read all the Megan Lind. You have to read A Wizard of the Pigeons before you read Assassin's Creed.
I have read Wizard of the Pigeons.
I haven't, but I have a signed
copy.
I don't
think you need to. If you have read Realm of the Elderlings.
Because I have a signed copy. Because when I was in Seattle at Emerald Con, I got my copy of Assassin's Fate signed, and then later I was at the bookstore, and I was like, they had a copy of Wizard of the Pigeons, and I'm like, I should have got it while Robin Hobb was here signing, and I look over, and there's Robin Hobb signing more books, and then I was like, oh, excuse me, and she signed my copy of Wizard of the Pigeons. She's very nice.
I'm sure. I don't know, because I have never met her.
I also told her that I got my mom to read Realm of the Elderlings, and that my mom loved it as well. So
I'm sure that made her day. So
I hope it did.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to let you go, and we're both shocking for this. So I'm actually going to hit end stream very, very quickly. Start waving. Chat, you were wonderful.
Bye, chat.
And next time
you make these way more fun every time.